Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to PCAP's Prairie's Got the Goods Week. My name is Caitlin Rose Seiler, and I am the Stewardship Coordinator with Saskatchewan Prairie Conservation Action Plan, or PCAP. Today, we'll be talking with Lynn Grant, a rancher from near Val Marie, Saskatchewan. Before we get going, I'd like to start by stating we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations and communities, past and present. For millennia, they have worked to protect these landscapes and the life these areas sustain. I'd like to thank these original caretakers and acknowledge the ongoing work and presence of Indigenous peoples in Canada today. I'd also like to mention that PCAP has one more webinar happening this week. You can join us tomorrow at noon to talk about cows, carbon, and grasslands. It should be very interesting. And this week we've had 5 webinars so far, as well as another coffee table conversation, and they've all been recorded and uploaded to the PCAP YouTube channel, so you can check that out if you missed anything. A reminder to our listeners out there, you'll be muted for the duration of the presentation of the webinar, but if you have any questions, feel free to type it into the Q&A section. I've got lots of questions for Lynn, but if anyone else has some too, feel free to type that in. Lastly, Prairie's Got the Goods Week is presented by the Canadian Forage and Grasslands Association, North American Helium, Nutrien, and SaskTown. So I will just turn off my screen so we can focus on Lynn here. So Lynn, I know that you're married and you've got 4 kids and you live in Val Marie, but can you tell us just a little bit about how you first got into farming or ranching?
Well, hello and welcome to everybody that's on the broadcast. Pleased to have you join us, and looking forward to the opportunity to share my and a lot of other people's enthusiasm about ranching and the things that we see on our native grass every year or every day that we're out there. I grew up on the my father's ranch here in Val Marie. Actually, my grandfather came from Ontario in 1910. At that time, the closest railway was Swift Current. So he had a 5-day round trip with horse and wagon to go from his homestead north of Val Marie to Swift Current and back. So I'm assuming when the 5 days was there, he probably didn't spend a lot of time in Swift Current other than loading the wagon up with supplies and turning around and heading back. So we think of transportation these days, but the early explorers several hundred years ago that first came west did it either on foot or on canoe and with horses. And it was the first traders that came from Montreal, it was an all summer trip to come to Winnipeg or Thunder Bay in order to trade. So and some of the earlier explorers took essentially all year to go from Thunder Bay to the west coast. They didn't know where they're going, and they had a lot of perseverance. And the same for the surveyors that surveyed all of our land before anybody else was here. And if you think of the straight lines and the accuracy that they did in the survey, and 100 and some years ago, or probably 150 years ago, that's pretty fantastic with the instrumentation that they had at that time. So some of those guys were very skilled and dedicated in what they do. So I grew up on the family ranch here at Val Marie. And the great thing about ranching, and most of us don't realize that until you have family members that don't that aren't ranching or farming, and that's the opportunity to take your children with you when you're going to work. Most workplaces are regulated by government regulations, and you can't have underage kids on the work site, so they miss out on all that hours of experience that gives them the can-do attitude and the figure it outable attitude. So for lots of years, the oil patch robbed our farm kids because they were the prime source of labor for the oil patch. And the reason the oil patch and everybody else liked farm raised kids is because that work ethic, I'll figure a way out to make it happen. And that comes from just spending the total hours with their parents that had to make it happen, as opposed to somebody working in a city job. The kids don't get that same kind of hands-on experience with their parents, and they have to pick up that in a very short period of time when they get out into the workplace. And some of them have a terrific challenge doing that. So the farming and ranching, and there's a few other occupations that enable people to take the younger generation with them, and that does wonders for the just the I could figure a way to make it happen attitude. So that's some of my philosophy about ranching. The other thing is, if you hear some of the sports athletes talk about what makes them do what they do, whether it's a football player, basketball player, and Canada's case, hockey players, they usually tell you that they're not working. They've just found some way of getting paid to do what they really enjoy. So most farmers and ranchers, that's kind of what they like. It's their passion, and they really like it. And it's a highly cyclical. Agriculture is highly cyclical business, and it's not always easy to make a profit. Most people that are involved in it put in long hours with low pay. The current land values being as what they are, but for most of us, land isn't a marketable item. It's kind of like a heritage that, something that really, I don't know of a very few ranchers who got into, or farmers that got into the business with the objective of selling their operation when they can no longer operate it themselves. They would prefer to have family members take it over. So anyway, that's kind of that process.
Can you tell us a little bit about your operation right now? Like, do you guys have cow-calf pairs or heifers? Do you have native grass or tame or cropping?
Well, we've got a little bit of it all. We've probably about 2/3 of our acreage is native grass. 15% of it or so is cultivated annual crops. So we're one of those so-called mixed farmers. And the challenge with that is there's always something to do every day of the year. So there's really no breaks with it. If you go back 50 years, most operations on the prairies were mixed cattle or hogs in some cases, and mixed grain operations. Most of them now have specialized either into annual cropping in the grains. That just simplifies things, and they gain the efficiencies of time, whereas a mixed operation has more challenges with the quote efficiencies of time. The mixed operation, you level out the highs and the lows, so you don't get the same kind of highs as you do with a single enterprise operation, and hopefully not always, but you kind of level out the lows also. The one challenge that is really noticeable in the last few years, especially the past spring, is the invasion of crested wheatgrass out of the road ditches into the native grass, usually on the east side of the road that's downwind. And if you stop and look at it, it starts out with just a few plants here and there, but then if you look at it over time, so if anybody out there has any solutions to how to control that species invading our native grass, there are those of us that would really like to see that. And not to downplay the importance of crested wheatgrass, because it is the one introduced grass species that in the 30s, when the land was blowing, crested wheat was the one thing that stabilized the soil. So it does serve a useful purpose, but it's like everything else. It's if it stayed in its lane, it would be a little bit better than what blows downwind.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Val Marie is often the hottest place in Canada, or the coldest place in Canada, or the driest place in Canada. How have you been able to make a go at it for so long? Do you have any
Well,
techniques that you can share?
the I think like everybody else in the agricultural business, the uh, you try to build your operation around some resiliency. Uh,
Hmm.
so most people in the ranching business like to have half a year or even a year's supply of hay carried over, so that when you hit that works good for the 1 year of super drought. But when you get into 3 or 4, it kind of runs thin. And the other aspect is, um, if you want to be on the very edge of things, uh, that works great if everything goes great for you. But when things turn sour, if you're right on the very edge, you don't have much sponge space. So everybody is a little bit, uh, stocking rate wise, they seldom stock right to the limit, and that gives them a little bit of sponge space when they need it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So I mentioned how hot and cold Val Marie can be. Um, how do you get out of bed every day when it's like we were talking earlier, it's that deep freeze for weeks on end and keep going and doing what you're doing? What gets you out of bed?
Well, the no different. If you talk to some of the people in the city that go for a morning run every morning, and you ask
Mm,
them what gets them out of bed when it's so cold that nobody else wants to be outside, kind of the same thing. It's what you do, and it's a matter of uh, your mental approach to it.
mhm.
Usually, the weather outside isn't as bad after you get out as it is before when you're inside looking out. As long as you're dressed for it, and that sort of thing. And it's just uh, part of what we all do. And actually, every farmer and rancher out there, and some of the outdoor enthusiasts out there too, they enjoy being outside. So that's part of what gets them up and out in the morning is just that joy of being outside. So if you stop and think of um, the significant population in the city, that what do they do come Friday afternoon or Saturday morning? They want to go out to the country. Well,
Mhm.
there's those of us that we get to do that every morning. And and it's just part of that's just part of who we are and what we enjoy. And sometimes it's when you freeze your cheeks or freeze your nose or whatever, it's probably not so much fun. But you can do that in the joggers in the city that go out and go for a run regardless of the weather. So the yeah, there's just that group of people that just enjoy being outside, and uh, that's fantastic in kind of all the weather.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I can't help but notice, but on the walls behind you, there's some beautiful pictures. I see a young owl and a sharp-tailed grouse, and I'm assuming these are some things that your very talented photographer wife, Sherry, took. What kind of wildlife do you guys have at your place?
Well, I guess those of us that in the south of the Divide area uh, are really fortunate in that we've got a fair number of species that a number of the rest of the prairies don't have. The so-called rare or endangered species. So we get to see them. I'll just take you, if I can. I don't know whether I can do this. I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
That's not going
we
to
can
show.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the for those of us that have the, um, I guess, good fortune to have a sharp tail lek that we know where is at. With this time of year, we any evening or morning we can go out and watch the sharp tails in their mating dance. Uh, and I can remember a number of years ago, Pat Fargy with Parks Canada, when I had commented to him, like, what's the big deal with a bunch of these endangered species? Because those of us here see them kind of every day, as long as we know how to recognize them. And he just made the comment, you have to forget that you're living in a bubble. So we've got a lot of grassland and native grass here where these species exist that, in a lot of the rest of Saskatchewan, they don't exist because of the conversion to cropland. So we've got we've got rattlesnakes, which everybody likes to see at a distance, not when you step over a swath and and you jump out of your boots because somebody's rattling underneath your feet. But the just the whole gamut of the chestnut colored long spurs, Sprague's pipit. The Sprague's pipit is, I've learned how to identify that by ear, but now that I use a quad instead of a saddle horse with a little extra noise, you don't get to hear them as well as you used to. So it's 2 weeks ago that the first Canada geese came back. So those of us that are outside every day, you get to see that first flock of geese flying over. And the advantage about geese is they kind of announce, they verbally announce their presence. So we occasionally see the swift fox, as a lot of people in this area and the south of the Divide area, occasionally see swift fox, some more than others. So we don't have to pay a tourist guide to show us the wildlife that we have.
Absolutely. Have you had any challenges with ranching with species at risk?
Well, no, not really. Occasionally, and I think that some of our regulatory agencies have come to accept that the species are here because of the ranchers, not in spite of. So if you want a whole bunch of these species, you probably better look for somebody that's maintaining their habitat, which is good quality grassland. And those of us in the ranching business, good quality grassland is what we make our living on. And it just gives us these species. And for the most part, both government regulatory agencies in the last number of years and some of the environmental organizations have come to accept that if you want these species, support good quality grassland, namely the ranchers that steward it, and will do a lot better job of keeping what species we have. The Grassland National Park is right beside us, and essentially it's just an island in the sea of grassland that we still have here, and it's a great place for the sightseers and the tourists to come. But essentially, it's the surrounding area that is part of the whole ecosystem that maintains the habitat for the species that are highlighted in the park.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of our attendees is wondering, have you had any issues with like feral pigs out this way on your land?
We haven't had any issues of feral pigs here. It's partially because they prefer a little more bushy habitat than what we have. Doesn't mean that they won't come. And there's especially in the northeast and east part of the province, feral pigs can be and are a considerable issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what do you consider to be the best part of your job?
I think the best part of the job is being outside in with livestock and nature. The spring is for me the best time of the year. The wildlife comes back. All the migratory birds that have gone south come back, and they kind of brighten up the morning sounds. Grass turns green. The trees bud out. The wildflowers come. The new calves come. They hit the ground. Fawns. If you ever have the opportunity to see sharp-tailed grouse chicks with their little yellow mottling. It's just, that's the best part of it, is just being out there kind of, and that's, we see them because we're out there lots of times. For somebody that wants to come and go see if they're going to spot a sharp-tailed grouse chick, my comment is good luck, because those of us that are out there a lot only see them a few times in our lifetime. So somebody that wanted to come and see them, you'd have a hard time without spending hours and days and years out there.
Yes. And do you have one species in particular that you feel really connected to, or that just sort of gives you that aha moment and makes you feel inspired to pay more attention to the species?
Not particularly. And this is just the last few years. If you start paying attention, of course, we all see the deer, and occasionally now that we get the odd, there's some elk moved into the area, and people come to see the bison in the national park. So, and the antelope, we all see the bigger species. But if you really want to pay attention to diversity, look at your insect population. And if you really want to get into it, try paying attention to the spiders out there. Now you have to watch, because a lot of them are small, but there is just a fantastic array of spiders. And then if you really want to get into it, look up how to identify spiders. So the number of eyes and the placement of eyes, and I'm not talking about 2, I'm talking about 6 or 8 or whatever. So there is just a fantastic array of wildlife out there, over and beyond the half a dozen species that we tend to notice. So everybody notices a few of the hawks, and we've got half a dozen species that are readily, easily identifiable once you learn how to identify them. When you get into the prairie songbirds, it's a little more challenging, because, as one friend put it, they're little brown jobs, and there's only about a dozen of them guys. And if you don't have a musical ear, you have a hell of a time getting them to sit still long enough to be able to identify them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. One of our attendees is wondering if you're finding the drought years to be getting more severe over time.
We've always had drought years. Some of them, come in singles, and then some of them come in batches. And historically, I think if you go back into the 1,000-year history, which they've been able to do with tree rings, so everybody poo-poos John Palliser of 150 years ago, in the 1850s or 1860s. There was a 20-year period there where there was only about 3 or 4 years of the 20 years when they had above average rainfall. The other 17 or so years were below average rainfall. So that's, when he said that essentially this part of the country wasn't fit for agriculture. So we haven't had one of those 20-year drought periods. Since then, we had, 8 or 10 years in the 30s that were dry. If you go back far enough into the tree ring history, I think it's about 1100, there was about 100 years there where there were only half a dozen years of above average precipitation. So is it worse than it has been? Depending on how far you want to go back. We'd feel rather hard done by if we had 50 years of below average precipitation. We think we're hard done by with about 5 or 6 years of below average precipitation. It's kind of all in perspective. The other challenge that we have is our short-term memory. So the years from about 2007 to about 2017 were one of the wetter 10-year periods in our most recent history. So we got addicted to that. I could have stayed back there too. It's a lot more fun farming and ranching when you get the rain to grow things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now, quite a few of our attendees have noticed that you really have a passion for the small things, the biodiversity. You're talking about the spiders that a lot of people just walk over and never even pay any attention. Do you think that this is something that's common amongst all ranchers, or is it something that's special to your ranch?
I don't think it's special to me. Some people will pay more attention to that sort of thing, and it's uh, a lot of it is, if you try to pay attention to it, it's just like shopping for a car, and you want a unique car and all that kind of stuff, and you buy a car, and then all of a sudden you go drive down the road, and because you've learned how to identify that particular model of car, then
Mm.
holy shit, they're all over the place. Uh, so if you pay attention to uh, a whole bunch of that stuff, you'll find that they're there. Uh,
Mhm.
Go out in your backyard and look at this ground surface. Uh, you'll find a whole bunch of critters out there. Now, if they kind of join you in the house, most of us don't appreciate that very well. Uh, the I don't appreciate mice anywhere, but you have to remember that mice are the feedstock for a whole bunch of our raptors and a whole bunch of our small carnivores. Um, Foxes, coyotes, and they live on mice, and just about all of our raptors, especially the small ones, live on mice. And once you get into the larger raptors, uh, that's our gopher. That's what gophers feed. And the so I don't know whether we've got an overpopulation of gophers or whether we've got a lack of raptors and potentially coyotes. Uh,
Mhm.
Coyotes, the challenge with them is they like a bigger meal occasionally, so then they kind of like some of your calves or whatever. If they stuck with the small meals like gophers, they'd be just wonderful.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that kind of the PCAP partnership has been talking about is the succession planning, with branchers and how to get younger generation interested. Do you have any tips for people out there who are trying to get their grandkids more interested on their farm or ranch?
Well, that's a tough one because historically, starting 100 years ago when we really populated Western Canada, or just about everywhere in the world, and we've been losing population.
Mhm.
So it means that we've been losing our next generation kind of just about for forever. The
Mhm.
and it's getting more challenging all the time. Uh, if you take the Val Marie school, they don't have enough kids in school to make a volleyball team anymore, so they have to travel 50 miles to join a volleyball team. Uh,
Yeah.
Thank gosh for curling, because then it only takes 4 kids to curl rather than some of those things. So it's a challenge. No different than anything else. If we get some good profitability into it, it will help considerably. And the yeah, profitability is a big thing.
Mhm.
We're getting a lot more interest in annual cropping. Uh,
Mhm.
this year might be different with the drop in commodity prices. So no, I don't have uh, any total solutions. And if somebody had that, that would be great, because I think all of us in the bigger scope of things would like to see that. And for those people out there that enjoy eating, uh, they have a vested interest in keeping a farm population on the farm, regardless of whether it's Southwest Saskatchewan or Ontario or the U.S. or wherever it's at. The whole world needs somebody to produce the food.
Absolutely. And earlier today, we had a presentation by NCC, and they are talking about, the value of crops versus ranching. And they actually had like, I think 15 or 20 different ideas of what's happening, whether it's carbon offsets and payments for habitat and stuff like that. It was really interesting to see that there's so many people trying to think of ideas, and profitability is important, and no one really has any answers. And our presenter kind of said that it's just right now these are ideas, they've got things going, and how long it'll work out. But at least there's some momentum in that direction. So
Well, there is, and that's great to hear that. And it's probably not going to be one silver bullet that
Yeah.
maintains our grasslands, and the just whether it's the Nature Conservancy or Ducks Unlimited or Environment Canada or any of the other environmental organizations out there that appreciate the goods and services and the biodiversity and everything that well-managed grassland provides to society. But the challenge with that is we haven't created a methodology to financially reward producers that maintain that kind of biodiversity, and that's part of our challenge. It's kind of like everybody enjoys fresh air, but nobody.
Producers who have all the grass and are providing it.
Yeah, so as a society, if we want to maintain those things, we need to find some way of rewarding those that maintain them, and that can come partially in the form of actual financial rewards. And probably another thing that would go a fair ways is some policy structures from government that enable those producers there. You aren't going to be able to preserve some of the biodiversity and attributes that good managed grassland just by national parks or provincial parks alone, because they can't encompass enough area to do that. So we need to find ways of enabling society to help those working landscapes stay in business and that sort of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Have you, one of our attendees is wondering if you've had any challenges with your operation with specific wildlife species or species at risk?
Well, for us in tough winters, white-tailed deer get to be a challenge. They'll move into the stack yards, and they probably, it's not even a 10-to-1. They'll destroy 50-to-1 compared to what they eat. So it's not what they eat, it's what they tramp on and defecate and manure and urinate on. So that's the major one. Occasionally we'll get some bad coyotes that think that living off calves is an easy lifestyle. So we can get some challenges that way. Most of the other species know, as at least for us specifically, the one thing that it's about 10 years ago that the Sierra Club took the federal government to court over sage grouse habitat, and forced through legal means the federal government to take action to try to protect sage grouse habitat. And they don't have enough science to know what was the cause of the drop in sage grouse numbers, but they were forced to do something. So they put restrictions on those operators in areas where there, sage grouse habitat was a potential, and didn't do it. It was poorly done, and really, people should be rewarded for preserving and creating the habitat for these species rather than penalized for having it. So as a society, if we penalized our Olympic athletes for not winning a gold, how many Olympic athletes do you suppose we would have? But we reward them, maybe not appropriately, but we reward them. So we need to change our approach to some of these endangered species. We have to make them a valuable item to have on your place rather than a detriment. And if all you're going to do is get penalized because you have habitat or the endangered species, it's going to be hard for those little guys to survive.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, are there any misconstrued notions or myths about farming or ranching that you would like to clear up?
Well, I don't, partially because I'm not a conspiracy theorist person. So
Mhm.
yeah, there are some myths out there that some of the, especially the animal welfarist type groups, want to do about, we mistreat our animals, and we don't mistreat our animals because that's why we're in business. There's very few pet owners that mistreat their pets. Just occasionally there's somebody that uh, either doesn't have the capability of looking after them or whatever, and those cases hit the news. Somebody will have 100 cats that are kind of starving in the house, and that hits the news. But we don't
Mhm.
negatively look at all the pet owners in the same light. So some of these uh, animal welfare groups that like to go highlight some of the poor practices that the less than 1% of producers uh, do shouldn't be branded everybody that way. And in most of the cases where a producer isn't doing a good job of looking after their stock, there's other circumstances that is creating that, whether they've got mental stress or financial
Mhm.
stress, or just something else is going severely wrong in their life. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, when you see that, you need to probably check to see with a little bit of compassion as to what's happening in the rest of that person's life.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, it sounds like your operation is this amazing sanctuary of, birds and wildlife and insects. Um, Eventually, when you retire, do you have any plans to try to keep the land in its native state or anything like that?
Well, I think I'm no different than any other farmer or rancher. We're looking for another person to carry on what we've done, and
Mhm.
personally, we're fortunate. We've got a staff person and his children that are just keenly involved in the operation. And even though it's not direct family, it's a young family that's keenly involved in agriculture and enjoys the same thing that we do. And I think that's uh, every farmer or rancher is kind of in the same boat, whether it's a personal family member or somebody else uh, that is willing to take over and look after the landscape. You have to remember, for all of agriculture, whether it's an annual cropping person or somebody that is a grass manager, uh, looking after the soil and the land is what makes them both money and gives them joy and pride in what they do.
Absolutely. I love that term grass manager. That's really nice. I don't think I've heard that before, but I really like it.
Right.
I don't know why I haven't heard it before. It's amazing. What's something that you're most proud of with your operation?
Well, I think we're no different than everybody else. We've been able to maintain the productivity of our grassland. We've spent some money developing more water holes, and this landscape in August and September, if you don't have water, you don't have anything.
Mhm.
So you don't have water for your stock, but you also don't have water for wildlife and everything else that goes along with it. And in a month's time, when it gets a little warmer, assuming that we've got some sloughs left at then, just about the last few years, every slough that you go out there and in early May, you can hear the coarse frogs singing. Uh, they need, they're a fantastic species because you can sit one of those little suckers in the palm of your hand quite easy. It's not much bigger than a toonie, and uh, they can fantastically sing a song that just reverberates and carries for a long ways in the just the dusk in the evenings.
Yeah, for our attendees, I actually live in Val Marie as well, and I've walked by your place before, Lynn, and you're right. In like May and June, the chorus frogs are amazing there. And I like how you said you put one of those little suckers in your hand. I haven't done that yet, but that's why they're called chorus frogs, right? Is they just have this beautiful chorus. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, and if you go out in the evening and catch one of the little guys, their little air sac is just about the size of the end of your thumb, you know. So yeah, they do a fantastic job of lighting up or whatever, singing for you in the early evening.
Yeah, they do. Well, Lynn, I told you we'd only be 30 minutes, and you're like, I don't know how we can talk for 30 minutes. I'm gonna have to trust your conversation skills, but you've done an incredible job sharing your insights. And there's been so many people that have written in to say, thank you for sharing your perspectives today. They really enjoyed hearing from you. Diego from Sodcap says that you're a guardian of the grasslands, and he's right. Nick has said that he's really enjoyed hearing about your life and ranching operation. So I just really want to reiterate some of those comments. And it's not every day that people get to hear from a rancher. So thank you for the time for sharing that with us today.
Well, very good, and thank you, and I appreciate everybody, all the nature enthusiasts that are understanding that a well-managed grassland is not only good for the rancher, but good for everybody else.
Yes. And I just want to just mention that the Grant Ranch also has a website and a blog. And then Sherry Grant does a lot of wildlife photography on your place, and she also has a website. So that's available there too if anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about the Grant Ranch and what they're up to. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
very
well,
good.
thank you so much, Lynn, and thanks so much to all of our attendees for catching today's webinar. We have been recording it, and we'll have it available online in the near future as well, so you can share it with someone else who would like to learn a little bit more about why ranchers ranch. So with that, thanks so much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see everyone online tomorrow for cows, carbon, and grasslands.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.